Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're stepping into, well, a slightly darker, definitely more mysterious space. We're going to explore the hidden psychological mechanics behind human desire. You see, the interplay between raw attraction and long-term love, it isn't some clinical science. It's an alchemy, a total dance of shadows, tension, and some really profound paradoxes. We're going to strip away all those tired cliches and look at what actually drives that initial spark of seduction. And maybe more importantly, why the exact things that draw us to someone like a magnet can eventually become the absolute hardest things to live with. Listen to this provocative truth for a second. The most vulnerable organ in a woman to seduction is her mind. It's a fascinating concept, right? And it's one that's often just completely hidden in plain sight. I mean, if you ask someone what they want, they'll probably list off traits like, oh, I want someone kind, safe, reliable. But here is the catch. They want those things from a partner they're already attracted to. Seduction isn't a resume of your good deeds. It's highly cerebral. It's the art of capturing attention and imagination way before logic ever even enters the room. So let's dive into Section 1, the architecture of seduction, building the contextual alpha. Now, pure attraction, it's rarely about absolute wealth or global power. It's really about how you position yourself within a very specific environment. We call this the contextual alpha. Basically, the person occupying the absolute peak of a localized status hierarchy. Think about it like this. Picture a junior designer who steps up in a pitch room and just completely commands the client's attention with a brilliant, undeniable concept. For those 20 minutes, they own the space. They possess this visceral, immediate magnetism that, honestly, an invisible billionaire CEO completely lacks, simply because that designer owns that precise, bounded moment in time. Moving right along to Section 2, the language of desire, rigid logic versus fluid resonance. Right, so there is a fatal communication mismatch that happens in attraction. On one side, we've got semantic, logical communication. This is driven by literal facts, it's stark, it's rigid, and it's focused entirely on just transmitting raw data. Like, did you understand the words I just said? Great, transmission complete. But true attraction relies on emotional resonance, which is incredibly fluid. It's not about the literal definition of the words you're saying. It's about provoking a shared emotional state. Think of it like two tuning forks. You strike one and the other begins to vibrate at the exact same frequency. When we get stuck fixating on the literal meaning of words, we completely miss the emotional container those words are being delivered in. And mastering that emotional resonance leads us to the ultimate goal of seduction, creating a shared private world. When two people are truly vibing, they essentially step entirely out of everyday reality. They build this bounded microcosmic universe where only their rules apply, completely isolated from all the noise and static of the outside world. That brings us to Section 3, the architecture of fantasy, the illusion of the first date. Here's a wild thought. The vast majority of early attraction is based entirely on projected fantasy. It usually happens in 3 steps. Step 1, we observe an attractive exterior. Step 2, we project our own internal desires right onto that person. And step 3, we fill all the unknown gaps with whatever we desperately want to see. When you sit across from someone on a first date, they aren't really attracted to who you actually are. They're attracted to the negative space, that blank canvas you provide, and the masterpiece they are hoping you might turn out to be. Which brings us to a pretty harsh truth. Talking too much destroys the mystery. Seriously, this is how so many people completely blow the first date. Out of this heavy-handed, almost desperate desire to prove their value and list off their resume, they just over-explain themselves. They leave absolutely nothing to the imagination. And in doing so, they violently shatter that delicate, projected fantasy. You essentially disabuse them of their hope before the appetizers even arrive on the table. Section 4. The crisis of disappointment when the halo shatters. Actually, notice the word necessary here. The crisis of disappointment is the necessary shattering of that initial romantic fantasy. The distortion of pure attraction fades away and, a slow, gradual disappointment sets in. We usually view disappointment as the tragic end of romance, right? But psychologically speaking, it actually marks the true, earnest beginning of a relationship. It's the exact moment the scales drop from your eyes, the visual tension resolves, and you finally see the person for who they actually are. And here lies the cruel irony. It's a rather dark paradox of human nature. What attracts us initially often infuriates us later. You know that charming, unpredictable spontaneity that totally thrilled you on the first date? Well, 2 years later, it's the exact reason you're arguing about unpaid bills. The very traits that spark an intense initial desire frequently morph into the precise friction points that make long-term cohabitation so incredibly difficult. Which leads us to Section 5. The modern romance paradox, demanding an entire village. You see, relationships are, at their core, an exchange of value. We exchange sex, security, excitement, emotional support, and child raising. Historically, human beings lived in extended kin networks. An entire village and a vast community fulfilled this massive array of needs. But today, we're so isolated, and so we demand this entire, exhausting exchange of value from just one single person. This creates an absolutely impossible demand. We want the stable, safe, predictable companion who provides absolute comfort and security. But simultaneously, we demand the passionate, spontaneous, risky lover who provides dangerous, electric excitement. We literally expect one human being to embody these completely contradictory archetypes over an entire lifetime. It is a massive paradox. You simply cannot be completely safe and highly risky at the exact same time. Familiarity inherently erodes the mystery required for desire. So how in the world do we survive this? Well, the answer is engineered novelty. This is the mechanism required to trick the human mind back into a state of desire within a long-term stable dynamic. So you basically have to artificially inject newness to spark the paradox. This means deliberately shifting contextual roles behind closed doors. It means exploring completely new environments together. It means traveling just to experience the psychological shock of foreign bed sheets. By simply changing the context and the visual environment, you temporarily shatter the mundane predictability of the relationship, and that restores just enough mystery and tension to keep the connection electric. Which leaves us lingering on one final, incredibly seductive question. How do you maintain the spark for 50 years? How do you master that delicate, lifelong tension between intoxicating fantasy and enduring reality? Well, it requires treating attraction not as a one-time event, but as an ongoing, deliberate alchemy. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the hidden mechanics of the world around you, and I'll see you next time.